I wanted to listen to that being addressed. The question clearly has been addressed, and on that basis we will move on. If there's any further supplementaries, move to question number 3, David Shearer.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The Prime Minister, does he stand by all his statements?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, yes. In particular, I stand by the statement that the opposition spokesman on education, Mr Hipkins, is making so little progress against Heke Parata, he's taken to pulling his hair out.
Nobody in this country believes that, I have to say.
Supplementary question, David Shearer.
Speaker, which is correct, that the revenue from asset sales, quote, could easily be 5 to 7 billion, as he said yesterday, or that the numbers will move around and may need to be revised downward, as his finance minister, conceded yesterday.
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Both of them are potentially correct and are not incompatible.
David Shearer, supplementary.
Does he stand by his statement, we're delivering on our election promise so we can free up between 5 billion and 7 billion, given that solid energy is now considered worthless?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Yes, but of course that's subject to the Supreme Court ruling that we'll hear at 3 o'clock.
Supplementary question, David Shearer.
As someone who has worked for an investment bank, does he think it's a smart idea to sell a state-owned energy company when the electricity demand is projected to be flat for at least a decade?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, it's not for me to give investment advice to New Zealanders. Well, I know the Prime Minister of the Labour term got herself in trouble with securities law, but I don't intend to. So, Mr Speaker, it's not for me to give investment advice, but what I can say is this. If we go and have a look at the mixed ownership model, and we go right back to when National started promoting that policy, that led to us in 2011 undertaking a scoping study. That scoping study really did the work of what the mixed ownership model companies would be much more subjected to, which is external analysis, external directors, a continuous disclosure of the NZX, and a capacity to have a better understanding of what's going on with the company. And in my opinion, if the member is asking me whether that would make those companies stronger and therefore more likely to succeed, in my opinion, the answer is definitely.
Supplementary question, David Shearer.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Has he contemplated cancelling his mixed ownership model program?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, no, but I'll let you know at 3 o'clock this afternoon.
Supplementary question, Brendan Horan.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Does he stand by his words in the Prime Minister's statement on the 29th of January that he would continue to support Kiwi Rail's turnaround plan, given that the near-fatal Morningside crossing accident would not have happened if the track maintenance workers were still employed instead of being laid off under Kiwi Rail's turnaround plan?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, yes, I stand by that statement, and secondly, I would really urge the member, who's relatively new to Parliament, to be extremely careful about making statements which could prove to be very incorrect and extremely upsetting for families. The member has a responsibility as a Member of Parliament to get his facts right, and I'm not entirely convinced they are.
Supplementary question, David Shearer.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. What advice has he received about legislative change should the Supreme Court ruling be adverse to the government's mixed ownership model program?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, I haven't had any advice.
Supplementary question, Right Honourable Winston Peters.
I ask the Prime Minister, given that Sky City expansion is the biggest single event in his ministry as a tourism minister, the biggest single event in Auckland at this present time, that sees him go to, at this present time, that sees him go with officials armed with taxpayer resources and money at a meeting with Sky City with no pre-meeting record, no meeting record, no post-meeting record, no contact with Sky City to find out whether they've got a record. Is it fair in those circumstances or unfair for the average New Zealander person to think that you are, as Minister, flat out lying?
Please address it to the Minister, not to the Speaker.
The Speaker said the member didn't ask me a question. I'm not going to answer it. It started with given, buddy.
Point of order. Right.
Order, Speaker. You know that I asked him a question. I set out the circumstance and asked him, was it in the circumstances His lack of knowledge, that is.
Order. Order. Remember, please resume his seat. I listened very carefully to the question, and at the end the question was there about is it fair? So I think if it was just that part of the question given to the Prime Minister, he'd have more chance of answering to the member's satisfaction.
I'll say it slowly.
Yep.
Given that the Sky City expansion is the biggest single event in his tourism ministry...
Point of order.
Starting a question with given is a statement.
If the member... We've heard... I'm trying to assist the member on this occasion. It's a very lengthy question that we've all heard the given to. If the member could just now get to the question, which is it fair, I will try and elicit a response for the member.
My question very simply is it fair or unfair for the public of New Zealand to conclude after this denial, with respect to no pre-meeting, actual meeting, post-meeting record of either party, to conclude that he, as Prime Minister, is flat out lying?
Order. That's a very... Point of order, or
Speaker,
the Prime Minister will answer.
The member hasn't indicated which meeting he's talking about. I can't answer that question.
Supplementary question, David Shearer.
Supplementary question. If there is an adverse decision by the Supreme Court today, will he rule out cancelling the mixed ownership program?
Mr. Speaker, it would be extremely imprudent of me to make a comment when we are 35 minutes away from a Supreme Court ruling. If I was to answer that question, what would happen is the Muppets on the other side would jump up and down saying I was trying to run in front of the Supreme Court, and I don't intend to do that.
Question number 4, Shane Arden.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Health.